So why have we decided we were going to put all of our creativity, all of our leadership, all of our innovations, we're going to put that somewhere because we have been conditioned to think everything African is trash, inferior, primitive. And we, as Africans, believe them.
I'm a king. Yes, I'm a king.
Welcome to the Africa Narrative Podcast, the podcast where we explore ideas, challenges, and solutions to a brighter future for Africa. My name is Femi Shueu. Today, I'm going to talk about Africa, about taking control of our destiny, that it is time for an Afrocentric revolution. For too long, Africa has looked to the east, to the west, and more recently to China, seeking inspiration and validation. There is this consistent desire to adopt external systems. What's wrong with our systems? Why are we not using African solutions to solve African problems? Africa does not need to always look outward. Of course, we have things to learn from other people. But what's wrong with building African institutions, using African values, creating and developing these values to solve our problems? Today, I'm going to talk about why this is necessary and how it can happen. So before we go on, please subscribe and follow us on Africa Web TV. Africa deserves Africa. We don't need always to seek validation from the West. For centuries, Africa has been shaped by external forces, colonial legacies, the pain of slavery, and post-colonially, in what we call independence period, African governments adopted system of governments, constitutions that were, if you really look at it objectively, were not designed for Africa. These were systems that have been tried and tested in Europe, in the West, based on their cultural values, based on their view of the world, based on how the people of Europe and America were or are. Even 60, 70 years after independence, Africa is still struggling to adapt to systems that were and still are foreign to our ways of life. And if we are using those kind of systems that we don't really understand, how are we going to move forward? We have been struggling the whole time to understand how these things work.
When we use words such as democracy, we must recognize their foreign nature.
Democracy, that is just a blanket term that we have decided to adopt in Africa. But even in the countries where they practice democracy in Europe, in America, the way democracy operates in the Netherlands is different from the way it operates in America. The way it operates in America is totally different from the way it operates in Great Britain, for example. But we have just adopted everything and say, this is the way to go. And what did we do in the process? We abandoned the ways that we used to govern ourselves. Africa is a place of great intellectuals, past and present. Africa has always been a beacon of innovation, leadership, and creativity. So why have we decided we were going to put all of our creativity, all of our leadership, all of our innovations, we're going to put that somewhere because we have been conditioned to think everything African is trash, inferior, primitive. And we, as Africans, believe them when they say those things to us. So we think unless we are wearing a heavy wig in 40 degrees Celsius, we cannot sit in a court of law and be a judge or be a lawyer. We're wearing suits, coats that are totally not with our culture because we are trying to become them. We have left our culture and our brains behind because we have come to believe that without the approval of the West, Africa does not mean anything. Why are we still using other people's framework to define our future? Is it a surprise that after 60, 70 years of independence, Africa is still struggling? Africa is still going up and down. We are finding ourselves in a sort of political, economic cul-de-sac. That is because we are trying to become people who we are not. The collective, that is Africa. The Ubuntu, that is how we grew up. That is even our forefathers. When there was trouble, they met in the village square, tried to solve their problems. Africa has long valued the community over individuals, cooperation over competition, and the collective good over selfish gain. These are values rooted in the African tradition. They should guide the way we approach governance, economics, and social structures. Why are we not in classes, in our schools, teaching real African history? Why is it that our books, whether it's on history, whether it's on science, whether it's on literature, is still Western oriented? Why are we not learning about our kings, our queens, our own achievements? You could argue, okay, these are usually not written and they are oral traditions and everything, but we have the oral traditions. Look at the past through history, through carvings that we make, through the things that the Europeans told us were bad, but they stole everything to put in their own museums in Europe because they actually appreciate our history more than we appreciate our history. Because we are always looking at all the glitters, all the gold that is shown to us. Like, okay, this is beautiful, but is Africa not the place where everybody wants to be? Is Africa not the place where we have all the cobalt, all the oil, all the gold, lithium, you name it? Don't we have it in Africa? So if we create a system that is Africa-based, forget about democracy. We had our own democratic institutions.
Guys, this whole thing of democracy is a smokescreen of lies. Because even in countries where they are claiming democracy, they are enjoying more freedom in Africa than we can enjoy in their own country.
Every kingdom in Africa, before the colonial people came, had their own kings or queens, had their own council of chiefs that were meeting. That brings me to how we are going to take control of our destiny and become more the drivers of our own cars. First, we need to create our own institutions. You are wearing somebody else's clothes. It doesn't fit. It doesn't fit into Africa's unique realities. Take, for instance, democracy. That system works in some parts of the world, but it's often forced into African countries where traditional consensus-based systems of government have worked for centuries. Why don't we recreate that, reimagine that? Take the idea of Ubuntu, the philosophy that says, I am because you are. Because what we have now with democracy is that the government is there, the people are here. And in between, there are so many obstacles built in that the government cannot hear the voices of the people cannot hear the voices of the government. So the government is shouting down on people, people are looking up to government for deliverance. We have adopted a system that is not conducive to Africa, a system that is foreign to how we are as people. We will always be a community. But if you say we are a community and you are adopting systems that are created or were created for people who believe more in individualism, who believe more in competitions, who believe more in me versus you, me against you, instead of the Ubuntu way, how is that going to work for us? And for the past 70 years, it has not worked for us. Why are we still running in the dark like a chicken without a head? Is it a surprise then that people do not feel heard, do not feel listened to, do not feel like they are part of governance? Even our leaders, sometimes you have to pity them because they are just trying to wriggle themselves into within a system that they even don't understand. In terms of economic system, Africa should stop being passive participants in the global economy, where we sell raw materials and import finished products. I mean, we have everything. For those who believe in God, you can say, God has blessed us that we have everything we need in Africa. 60% of the world's arable land is in Africa. Maybe 30 to 40% of the mineral resources of the world is in Africa. The second largest rainforest in the world is in the Congo Basin in Africa. We have been blessed with all of these resources. But what do? We enter into these agreements with all the foreign companies. You can come and extract all those things, take it to your respective countries, process them there. We will buy it at 20 times the price that you bought it from us. How does that make sense to anybody at all? We should not be looking for easy solutions. We should be looking for solutions that will last for a long time. Because in our quest to become like Europeans, we forget that those things take time. But those things were built on their own systems. So if we want those things, we have to just think that our generation is the generation that has to lay the path. But we have children, grandchildren, and great-great-grandchildren who can continue on those paths and develop Africa. We should find ways of renegotiating contracts. Some of those contracts will expire. Whenever they expire, can we then think like, okay, guys, we still want you, but when you are extracting things here, set up the processing industries here. If the processing industries are in our place on the ground, 90% of the people who will work there will necessarily be our own people. That solves sometimes the unemployment problems, but it gives us also more knowledge and expertise on how to do things. But the processing should be done locally so that if we are going to get those products, the prices will not be like tenfold like it is now. It reduces costs. It reduces our debt. Because most of these things that we buy our own things, most of them we buy with the IMF, with the World Bank kneeling on our necks. We buy all of these things on debts. Debts that our great grandchildren are going to inherit. So if our great grandchildren are going to inherit the debt, I think it's just asking for the minimum to say we should then build our systems in such a way that they are able to repay those debts. Because the way it is constructed now, we have mortgaged the futures of the next 10 generations.
Have you ever wondered, why is it that we get coffee and tea from Switzerland? Have you seen the large coffee fields in Switzerland? A good portion of that is coming from our beloved continent. Have you ever wondered, if we were to say everything that requires chocolate must be manufactured in Africa, do you know how many jobs we could create? Those who are manufacturing chocolates outside Africa, all they're adding is water and milk. Do people even know that? Does the world even know that? Cities are built out of African cocoa beans.
Why is it, like Arikana Shiombori said, that Switzerland is known for making chocolates when the cocoa beans are there in Ghana, in Ivory Coast, and in some other places in Africa? Why can we not set up processing industry there? Why can we not ask all the companies that make those things in Switzerland to set up their companies there? We are employed, you get your profit, everybody is happy. Ubuntu. But now we just say, come and take this product, and then they sell it to us at $3. What they bought from us for 1 cent. We have been busy sleeping and looking at Europe and the Western world for guidance. We have not been able to develop our own systems. As we speak, in Limuru, in Kenya, in Europe, most of the tulips they are using are being produced in Africa. The aeroplane brings them every morning to Europe, and nobody says, oh, these are coming from Africa. They claim it for themselves in Europe. Oh, tulips, that's a Dutch stuff. But most of it is grown in Kenya, in Malawi. So Africa is so blessed that we are cursed. We need to build a system of Pan-African trade and regional integration so that we can trade more within ourselves. Some people will argue that that is only possible if there are free borders and everything. I don't know how that works. But unfortunately, like Aliko Dangote once said, if he has to travel within Africa using a Nigerian passport, he has to get a visa for at least 30-something countries in order to go there and trade. But somebody with a French passport can go to all of those countries just like that without a visa. Or at least maybe he gets visa on arrival. Isn't that a bit strange? Isn't that a bit crazy? An African cannot move freely within Africa, but a Frenchman, a British man, an American can move more freely within Africa than an African person. So we need to check that out. Another way we can do this is education. Our education system is it's not working for us because we are not teaching ourselves to have pride in what we have achieved, in who we are, and what we want to be. And the way to do that, to start doing that, is to have our education system that is going to work for us. We don't teach enough African history. How many of the children in Ghana, in Senegal, know about the Muonemotapa kingdom? Everybody's looking at me now like, what? Muonemotapa kingdom? That is one of the greatest kingdoms Africa has ever had. It's in Zimbabwe. We have great kingdoms in Mali, the Songhai Empire, the Oyo Empire, the Ashanti. We have all of these great kingdoms, great history. We have arts, we have culture, we have music, we have everything. And yet, we are not validated through ourselves and what we know about ourselves. We are always seeking validation from the white man. It doesn't matter if it's the white man from the West or the white man from the East. Those are the ones we are seeking validation. We want to be like them, we want to look like them. I'm speaking their language. Why is it that in a big country like Nigeria, you have to first of all learn English before you learn your own mother tongue? Why is it that in schools in Nigeria, in Ghana, in many African countries, why is it that you first have to learn the foreign colonial language before your own? Why are our books written in those languages and not our languages? And then we go around making jest and fun of ourselves if somebody is not speaking English the way the English people speak it. I will think that joke is funny when the Englishman can speak Twi, or he can speak Swahili, or Shona, or Zulu, the way we are able to speak their language. So what we need to do is to start appreciating what we have, appreciating our culture, appreciating our music, appreciating our art, everything, our food. We don't have to seek approval from anybody. It's a dog that seeks approval of its master. Are we dogs? Let's make African literature, African history, African philosophy central to our curriculum. I am a graduate of African history. But even then, studying in Africa, you had to still learn about Constantinople. You still had to learn about the Greek philosophers. Where are our philosophers? How many of us are learning about African philosophies, African proverbs, African ways of life, how we used to be? And I'm not saying we should go back. I'm just saying you need to know where you are coming from to be able to appreciate where you are and to know where you are going. We are not coming from London. We are not coming from Washington, Tokyo, Moscow. We are coming from Migori. We are coming from Kumasi. We are coming from Dakar. We are coming from Benin. We are coming from Gabon. We are coming from Tswana. Let us use the education of our elders to get pride in ourselves. We need to proudly identify with our heritage. We need to be proud of our heritage. We need to be unique. At this moment, we are not unique because we are black, but in all our doings, in all our aspirations, we are aiming to be white. In the comment section, you can always say to me, you are wrong. Education is not just about history, it's about creating problem solvers. African universities and schools need to focus on innovation, critical thinking, entrepreneurship, rooted in the African context. We need to encourage students to think beyond the Western models and create solutions to African challenges using African ingenuity. Africa must embrace economic independence. In Europe, America, Japan, wherever they are now, it's just normal now that you do some transaction through your telephone. Send money from A to B and just like that. But where did that start from? Through African ingenuity. M-Pesa in Kenya. That was where all of this started. That you could send money to your great-grandmother who is in a remote village somewhere in Kiambu or wherever she was in Kenya, and she gets the money. That is an example of African creativity. Everybody has adapted it like they always do now without bowing down to Africa and saying, hey, we got this idea and system from Africa. Let them steal it. But that is an example of how African ingenuity and African creativity can work for Africans. We need to get ourselves away from this cycle of debt. We have saddled our great unborn children with lots of debts now, because many of our big infrastructures, first they give us loan to build an airport, but then we have to say, okay, this airport that you have built, if we are not able to give you the money back, then you're going to become the owners of our ports. Huh? What kind of stupidity is that? But that comes back to not having control of our own infrastructure, of our own minerals, of our own natural resources. If you take things here, you have to process them here. We don't need to go into debt. Africa will be the biggest lender of money in the world. And I'm not the first person who is saying all of this. I'm just adding my voice to it. If everyone starts to change the way they are thinking, we will not have all this debt dependency. And we need to break free of the cycle of reliance on the West, because they should be relying on us. Actually, they are reliant on us. If Africa shuts down, like we say, no Western country is able to do anything in Africa, extract all our mineral resources, their economy will collapse. But we don't know that because they keep telling us we are poor. But how can you be poor if you have all the resources that we have? We need to find a way to start redistributing wealth. If we can build M-Pesa, we can build other things. We should be able to cooperate within ourselves. If I know how to build a house in Ghana, and you in Ghana knows how to build an aeroplane, go to Angola. Angola should be able to say, come, let's use that, because it's ultimately cheaper for everybody. We are a dumping ground for all of the nonsense that are coming from Europe. Most of our things we get there are secondhand, even secondhand clothes. Let our system be rooted in African culture and tradition, but let us use that which has worked in other places. But it is not like we are going to copy and paste everything. Let us Africanize the thing. Let us make it Afrocentric. Look, music. We've made R&B, we've made reggae, you can name all the genres, but Afrobeats just went there because it is authentic. And it is not only African in that music. There are a lot of inspiration from other places, but it is rooted in Africa. It is African ingenuity. It is African creativity. That's why it becomes something unique. Nollywood, we used to laugh at Nollywood. They are producing shitty films and all of that. Yeah, of course they were and still are producing shitty films. But in between, there are quality coming up. Because we cannot walk until we crawl. And that is one stage of life that Africa wants to skip. Everything coming from China until about 20 years ago we used to look at them as inferior. But now everybody is running to China to buy their things. So we need to do the dirty work first, but based on our norms, based on our culture, based on our traditions, not just being a copycat, copying everything that doesn't even fit into us. We need just the freedom to develop on our own terms. We can build our own Silicon Valleys in Africa. And as we speak, Kenya, for example, has a very big, innovative, digital, technological hub that is growing and growing. So why don't we focus on that? Why don't we focus on Africa's ingenuity? I'll leave you with this. We should stop imitating others. We should embrace our own uniqueness, our own values, our own visions. If you go to all of those awards or wherever you go in America seeking your validation, if you are wearing a suit, wearing a tie, like the average American, like the average European, you're not going to stand out in the crowd. But every time that we have made waves, it's when we wear African. When we go there as African and people will say, oh, this is different. It looks good. And that is when the questions and the curiosities will begin. We cannot achieve anything if we are seeking validation from Europeans. It's time to stop looking always outward. Let's go inside ourselves and find answers, which has always been part of the African story. What I'm saying actually is, let us take control of our own destiny. Let's build institutions that work for us, not for foreign powers. This democracy they're just duping you, duping me, duping all of us. Democracy.
Democracy. Democracy. Demonstration of grace. Crazy demonstration.
Please leave your comments. And don't forget to subscribe to Africa Web TV. Our mission is to tell the African stories. Thank you. Until the next time, my name is Femi Shuewu for Africa Web TV.
I'm a king, yes, I'm a king. I'm a king.